Greetings all, welcome to my channel. I'm Zach, and today we'll continue the part 2 of our discussion about Belial's identity in ancient Babylon. So let's go. So we have the second interpretation of Belial, which is Belial, which is translated into without yoke. In so doing, in that manner, he is an entity of rebellion and going against divine law. This is a title of wickedness, and in that manner, Belial signifies the worship of false idols, which in the first part of the video, it is something that we draw the conclusion from. That is something that is repeatedly said. Furthermore, if we translate Belial either as Belial or Belial, both interpretations into Babylonian, we will have Lamelemu for Belial and Ia Nabistum for Belial. Now, the concept of Melamu in Akkadian, it has to do with divine radiance. It is the auspicious aura of deities in king. In so doing, the Ia Melemu will imply a spirit it would imply that this spirit is without this divine glory, which this would align perfectly with Belial's aspect as a fallen angel or divine being. Now, similarly, for Ia Nabistum will imply something lifeless and drained of divine essence, existing in a state of spiritual decay. Now, the spiritual decay part, it is something that I will also take note of, because this god, the Babylonian fallen god Erra, means just simply means destruction. It is derived from the Akkadian root word for destruction. So Ia Nabistum will imply something of decay, thus destruction, and there you have the connection. Now another interpretation in Akkadian for Belial is more attributed into his aspect without yoke. In so doing, in Hebrew, Belial, and in Akkadian, this phrase will be Ia Duraru, which this will mean without obedience or without legal restraint. Now, Duraru and yoke are pretty similar things. This means something like a divine order. In so doing, Ian Duraru would mean a refusal of this divine authority and order. Now, some other reconstructed titles for Belial, it would be Shark-like Katun, which this would mean the king without a yoke, which this would make him, of course, connected to Nergal. But as I said before, he is much very connected to the Babylonian spirit Erra, which is a warlike and chaotic deity who is depicted in myth, bringing disorder and chaos in the world. Erra is known Erra is known for instigating destruction and misleading kings, manipulating. Erra is known for deceiving and manipulating kings in order to cause chaos and disorder within the world and the kingdom itself. Now let's talk about the possibilities. If Belial was ever worshipped in Babylon or identified with a local god, the most realistic way of his presence emerged in the religious landscape that would have been through the forced immigration of the Jewish population of Judea following the Babylonian conquest in 586 BCE, when Nebuchadnezzar II destroyed the first temple and exiled a significant portion of the Judean elite into Babylon, and they also displaced the Jewish community, which it found itself in a foreign land with foreign gods who had dominated every aspect of their life, where Marduk was the supreme god and not Yahweh. So doing their god, the god of Israel, Yahweh, was rendered powerless. Now, as the Judeans tried to find justice and why this happened, probably the theological and spiritual ideas of lawlessness and of evil rose. In so doing this, probably took the form of Belial, something and being that goes against divine justice. Now Belial existed before this Babylonian exile. We have no evidence that Belial was used and was thought to be a spirit, but instead it was a term that described the sons of lawlessness in the Hebrew Bible, which even this would perfectly align him with the pre-existing god of the Babylonians and Akkadians that used to deceive people and manipulate royalty and bring them into chaos. And this god is no other than Erra, which brought injustice, which brought disorder, thus lawlessness. Another compelling factor is that many Jews did not return into Judah, even after the exile was completed, which was in 539, 50 years after they were captured. They were freed by the Persian king Cyrus. Now, these Jews were pretty much assimilated. There have been, of course, 1 or 2 generations in that exile in Babylon. They would, of course, take something from it, maybe even worship the gods, or what I believe about Belial was that we have the concept of Belial, lawlessness, and we have this god, Erra, which has fallen for the divine, which is the god that probably commanded this to happen, and the god that sprouted conflict and chaos into the kings of men. So we can probably suppose that the Hebrews assigned the concept of Belial into the god into the god called Erra. Now probably there wouldn't be any official cults or temples that worshipped Erra/Belial, but his worship would be something obscure, something mystical, something that you wouldn't let the other divine worshippers that worship the gods that were always around us, that promoted the nice flow, the transformation, the natural, the transformation of Belial, and the integration into the being of Erra would be something very natural for the exiled Jew during that time, because Erra represented corrupted kingship, divine injustice, worthlessness, and Belial was the Hebrew version of that concept, which this would align perfectly into the being of Erra. Now let's talk about something other very interesting, which we noted in the first part of this video, which is the concept of this spirit taking an image, taking into a form. So in the Vedic tradition, we have Solomon binding Belial into a brass vessel and basically throwing him away into Babylon, which there the Babylonians take the vessel thinking that there is treasure in it, and basically the whole thing becomes like a Pandora's box. They open it and all evil usurps, which there Belial enters an idol and becomes a false god. Now what's very interesting about both Belial and Erra is that yes, Belial was bound by Solomon, but he resisted the bound. Even by the might of God, he can resist. He can push away those bounds, those curses. And he's able to deceive divine powers, much like Erra. Erra now in the Akkadian and Babylonian myth, in the epi of Erra, in the myth of Erra and Ishnu, Erra does not himself marching into battle, nor he does issue and state a war against the highest god, Marduk, which we can have another correlation here with Belial and Yahweh, and Erra with Marduk. Now furthermore, he is literally deceiving Marduk. He tells Marduk that his regalia, that his crown, his robes and his scepter has become tarnished and he must purify them. He convinces him to rule. He must first step away from his throne, and Marduk, the very embodiment of divine kingship, abandons his station. He abandons his reign. He makes that king step away from his kingship. Now we can see Erra and Belial have very smart. They have very, very profound strategies, which is also the same method that Belial uses. He does not take by force. He grants it into others, ensuring that the others' rulers have become instruments of their own downfall, just like Erra. Now another link that connects both Belial and Erra is when we examine the shared role in oracles and false prophets. Belial was freed from his brazen vessel. He entered an idol, which the Babylonians give sacrifices to, and asked for prophecies, which Belial replied in divine voice, and those who had followed had fallen into a path of destruction and false promises, much like Erra. Now there's a very interesting line within the Epic of Erra. It says, "You change out of your divinity and made yourself like a man," which this is something very big. So we have the Belial idol, which literally says, they open the brazen vessel. Belial as a spirit flies away formless, and he enters an idol, which Erra, of course, is also a spirit. The line literally says, "You change out of your divinity," which can be interpreted as you had fallen, you had moved out of your divinity, you had moved away from God, from Marduk, from the Anunnaki, and as a sovereign spirit, as a lone spirit, enter an image of a man, which this can be, of course, interpreted as an idol. It doesn't say what a kind of man, which I'm willing to bet a beautiful man, a beautiful, seducing king, much like Belial, which takes the form of a brilliant angel. Now, if you want to read an article about this, an essay, a detailed essay, which explores all aspects about this connection, and even a connection with Nebuchadnezzar, the Babylonian king, because he made himself into an image of the idol. So we have literally Belial and Erra directly fucking up the Israelites. So yeah, I'm gonna link on Patreon, my Patreon, which you can read the full version of this. It will explore everything and every possibility